Hey guys, welcome back to Boots and Bunny Homestead. We're going to do some more sourdough today. If you've been around here for at least a couple of months or so, or you might have found me because of the video, but I did a same day, just plain white sourdough bowl, and I will link the card up here in the corner. You can go back and watch that. If you're new to sourdough, if you have any questions, there is a lot of details if you need more information on sourdough. Sorry, the fan is in the background. We are getting ready for an event tomorrow, and I have about 10 loaves I have to cook. So the stove is on, it's at 500, it is blazing hot. So I've got to have the fan on to cool me off over here. But I wanted to bring you along because I'm going to do a new loaf for pumpkin sourdough. And I wanted you to come along so we can make it together. This is still going to be a same day recipe. We're still going to follow the same directions as I do with the white bread. So like I said, if you need to go back and watch that video, get a little more information before you come to this one, then go check that one out. Now we're going to go ahead and jump in. And what I did, I'm on a lot of Facebook sourdough groups just for inspiration and try to help others. And so when I started looking into doing pumpkin sourdough bread, I got a piece of paper, and this is how I usually do my recipes. I get a piece of paper, I jot down a bunch of different notes on, you know, how much water, flour, sourdough starter did this person use, how much did this person use, how much did this person use, and I kind of put it together into the hydration that I need. With hydration, it's going to be flour, water, starter amounts added together. And then you're going to get a percentage for how much hydration you have. With pumpkin bread, it's a little bit different because the pumpkin is wet as well. So it does raise the hydration up. Now, the one down below, I can't remember the exact percentage. I think it was like 82 percentage of hydration, whereas my white sourdough loaf is in the 70s. I think it's 76 or 78. I'm not exactly sure. If I go back and look it up, I'll put it down here for you. But we're going to get to starting on the sourdough. And it is like 10:45. So this is going to be the last loaf that I bake tonight. After I get all the other ones baked, this will be the last loaf. So I'm going to do this throughout the day while I am swapping and shaping and baking all the other loaves. So I'll just kind of, you'll see other loaves sitting around and you'll see us doing other things because we got the freeze dryer running, we've got sourdough loaves going, and we're getting ready for our event tomorrow. So there's going to be quite a bit of items you're going to see kind of moving around the kitchen throughout the day. But we're going to jump right into the recipe. I'm going to have it typed out down below. Just hit the little more button beside, just below the name of this video. It'll be a few words, and then it'll have the word more, ... Click that. It's going to drop it down, and you will see the recipe down below. You can screenshot it, or you can highlight it and move it over to a Word document and print it off if you want to do it that way. So I've got my KitchenAid large bowl because I'm actually going to double this to make two. I'm only going to take two with me tomorrow and get the feel for how people like it. And I do use a scale. And then the only other things we're going to need is a pumpkin puree and flour, salt, and water. And of course our starter. Okay, so I like to, this is just a cheap little scale, it's like 10 bucks. Nothing fancy. And what I like to do is put my bowl on there first. Now you can either do that and turn it on, or you can turn it on, put the bowl on, and then tear it out. Half a dozen, 6 another. Whatever, however you want to do it. I put my bowl on there and then I just tear it out and it will be zeroed out. So I want to first start with 250 grams for one loaf of water. I'm going to put 500 grams of water in here, just so you know I'm doing a double recipe. The single recipe will be down below, but I'll give you both descriptions. So for a single loaf, 250 grams, and double loaf, I'm doing 500. Now for a secret I like to use is going to be to use warm water. And for you mamas out there, it's going to be about the temperature of a bottle. You know, you test it on the back of your wrist. It's going to be about that temperature. And I like to use sourdough starter that is not cold, because if you put warm water with a cold starter, that kind of defeats the purpose of warming it up. So I like to use a room temperature starter and slightly warm water, not over 100 degrees, for my water so that way it can all kind of warm up together and it actually processes faster. If you do need to warm your starter up, you can always put it in like a bowl of warm-ish water. You don't want hot water because you don't want to bake the outside. You don't want it that hot. But put it in a bowl of warm water and then cover it with a towel and it will warm up in about an hour or so. Alright, I've got a little much. Let me take some out. Okay, usually I'm not 100% exact, but I want to be with this recipe just because of the extra hydration that comes from the pumpkin. Okay, so I've got 500 grams for the double loaf. And then here's my sourdough starter. It's actually done peaked, and what you can do to make your starter stronger is once it peaks, stir it down and then let it rise again, because what that does is it breaks up the food particles in there that were not eaten the first time, and it disperses the yeast that you have been growing with the first peak into the food that hasn't been eaten yet, and it will actually rise again. And if you do that, it makes your starter stronger because it has eaten all of the food in there, and it will like double the yeast content that's in there. Alright, now I don't go by whether it floats or not, because bubbles is what makes it float. If you don't have bubbles, if you've already popped all your bubbles, it's not going to float. So you just have to go by if you know your starter is active or not. And we are going to do 200 grams of starter. And this one is actually floating. That's good. But I know mine's active. And if you guys want to get an active starter, I do sell mine on Etsy. And the link is down below. I have einkorn and regular white flour that I'm using here. Okay. And if you want to know what I'm talking about floating, mine is floating on top, which means it still has the air bubbles. I did stir it this morning, and so it's on its second rise. It's on its second peak. I fed it last night. It peaked. I put it in the refrigerator overnight when it was at peak. Took it out this morning. It had dropped probably about an inch. I stirred it up, and now it's already rising again. So to this, we are going to add 20 grams of salt. And if you hit tear between them, it's going to bring it back to 0. Now with my salt, in my opinion alone, salt does not affect my sourdough starter. I use Redmond's real salt. I do not use table salt. I have not used table salt in probably 5 years. But I don't sprinkle it directly on my sourdough starter. I actually put it on the side and let it kind of go down under it, and then that way the next time that it touches salt is going to be when I mix it up with the flour. Okay, so now what we're going to do is put in 200 grams of pumpkin puree. For a single loaf, that would be 100 grams. And I've got canned just because I used up all the ones that I home canned last year in some pumpkin soup, and we freeze dried it in little packages. And so I don't have any more. And I do like this kind because it is so dark. It's actually, you know, because sometimes you buy canned pumpkin and it's kind of light. Other times it's kind of dark, and I'm sure it's just a variety of pumpkin they use. So to this we're going to add 200 grams for a double loaf. Alright, exactly. And that was about a half a can. So it doesn't take much at all. And then we're going to tear this out, and we're going to put in, now this will depend on your preference. We're going to put in a sweetener. Now you can use sugar, you can use brown sugar, you can use honey, you can use maple syrup, or you can use whatever special diet that you're on allows. I'm actually going to use maple syrup because that is what people on Facebook have said brings out the best sweetness in the bread. So we're going to use, now you can do 20 to 40 grams of sweetener. I will leave that up to you. Some sweeteners are sweeter than others. I'm going to go in the middle, and we're going to do about 30 grams for a double loaf. So it'd be about 15 grams for a single loaf. We're going to do that. and see how it comes out. Alright, so 30 grams maple syrup. And that's probably going to be a couple of tablespoons, so probably about a tablespoon per loaf. Next is the flour. And I just refilled my flour last night because I'm doing so many loaves in the kitchen. So mine is down here in my bucket. Alright, so for this we are going to do, I'm going to do about 950 grams. And kind of see how that goes. I'm shooting for 1,000. Because usually that's the size of my loaves. But because of the hydration difference, I'm not sure exactly how this is going to be. We're going to use that. Now you can also put in a pumpkin pie spice if you want to. I think I might do that. I've got some pumpkin pie spice here. And I'm going to do, let's say, probably a teaspoon. How about that? Because you don't want to do too much and overpower it. So let's do a teaspoon. So maybe a 1/2 to 3/4 teaspoon per loaf. I always mix mine on the second level. With breads, with a KitchenAid, you don't want to go over 3. Now you can do this with your hand if you want. I have gotten used to mixing it only with my KitchenAid, and then that way I can transfer it to another bowl that is a little bit flatter, so I can do my coil folds or my stretch and folds at that time. And I don't rely on my KitchenAid to do that. It only mixes. Okay, so this is going to mix 3 to 5 minutes-ish, and it's going to be, it's not going to be smooth. We are at what's called shaggy dough, and you still want it to be kind of bumpy, I guess you could say, a little bumpy, and then it's going to rest. And I think that water consistency was perfect because it feels like my white dough that I make. And so this is going to be kind of sticky and shaggy. And so now we're going to let this rest for about an hour. And I'm actually just going to leave it in this bowl. But there it is. Very shaggy. And I'm going to cover it. I use a shower cap. We're going to use a shower cap and cover it. Sit for an hour, and then we're going to start doing our stretch and folds. Okay, now time for our stretch and folds. Wet your hands on both sides, and you can either do coil folds or stretch and folds. With bigger batches, I like to do coil folds. And you just go under and pick it up, and it's going to kind of fold under itself, and then you lay it back down, and you do it once on each side. So in the last video, I did stretch and folds. I'm going to show you how to do coil folds in here. So you just go under and pick it up in the middle, and see it's going to kind of fold over under itself, and then you just lay it back down on top. Turn it all the way around, and then do it again. And then you'll see when you need some more water because it gets sticky. Don't worry about it being sticky at this stage. It will get better, I promise. Okay, now we're going to turn it back a quarter. We've done these two sides. Now we're going to do these two sides. So reach under, pull it up, turn it around, reach under, pull it up, and turn it around. It's okay if it doesn't come undone from the sides just yet. We're trying to build up the gluten so that it will start to detach from the edges. So now we're just going to cover this back up, let it rest 30 minutes, and I'm going to set my watch timer. Round 2. can do more than 4. You just kind of have to fill your dough, see when it tells you to stop. It will literally say no more. You will feel it. Alright. 30 more minutes.
What is the music? Is all of the music around?
Nope. What? Okay, good grass. Maybe think somebody's been here because it's been playing for hours.
Alright, so when I finished up doing my last or my 4th stretch and fold, it sat here for an hour. And that's all I allow, because with sourdough, you start counting from when you put the sourdough starter in your dough. So it has already been 3 hours, 3.5 hours, and that's all I'm going to let this ferment on the counter. I'm going to now put this into the refrigerator. Now, in my my white flour boule recipe video, what happened during that time is after the 1 hour, then we would put it on the counter, we would shape it, we would put it in our bowls, we would put it in the refrigerator for an hour. I have since changed that just a little bit, because I do not really have a micro bakery, but I cook up to 24 to 30 loaves in 2 days to get ready for events. And so what I have learned is that once I let this sit for an hour after I do my folds and stretches and all that, I'll let it sit for an hour, or I will put it in a bigger container. I have one of those big square, it's a pantry storage thing. It's 46 cups, so it's pretty massive. It's probably about 3 gallons. I have one of those that I make dough, because I can only make 2 loaves comfortably with my KitchenAid at a time. So I will make the 2 loaves, and then once I get it all mixed and past my stretch and folds and all that, once it's rested, then I start pouring those individual bowls, or I either pour all my doughs together into one large bowl, then I will put it into that container and stick it in the refrigerator. Now, that's where it differs right here. So after the 1 hour rest, I'm just going to stick it straight into the refrigerator. I won't shape it until I get it out. So I'm going to let it sit in the refrigerator until I get ready to bake it. This could be 3 days from now if you want. The minimal time that you want in the refrigerator is at least 1 hour. And that is going to slow everything down. It's going to make your dough a little bit easier to work with. It's going to firm it up, you know, kind of like you do cookies. Sometimes it'll have you mix everything and then put it in the refrigerator for about an hour to firm everything up so that they're easier to handle. So that's what we're doing with this. This is part of the fermentation process, but we're going to put it in the refrigerator for an hour to let it kind of harden up a little bit and make it easier to shape. Plus, That also gets rid of, whenever you're doing multiple loaves, that gets rid of all those different bowls and banneton baskets from being in the refrigerator. So you can do one bulk ferment with all your dough together, and then pull it out and then shape it into your individual baskets or bowls or whatever, and straight bake it from there. So that's what we're going to do. I'm not going to shape anything right now. I'm going to throw it straight into the refrigerator. And I've got to go to church because we have our new pastor coming in tonight, and we have a deacon's dinner that we're going to get ready for. And of course, I'm in the kitchen. That's my job there. So we are going to get ready for that supper, and I'm going to cook this, or these 2 loaves, as soon as I get back. So we will see what these turn out to be shortly. Alright, so I've gotten the dough out. You see it has really risen. When we put it in the refrigerator, it was like down to here. So it's definitely doubled. And I'll tell you, it's probably been like 5, maybe 6 hours since I put it in there. I was gone longer than I expected. But we are here. We are going to do it now. Alright, and so I'm just going to just dump this out on the flour surface and find my bench scraper, and then we're going to divide it into 2. This is a pumpkin cleaner outer thing, scooper. I never got a bowl scraper, it's just, I had a pumpkin thing and that's just what I used. Alright. See if I can do this so you guys can see it. Cut and pull it apart. Okay. And then I'm just going to pull it over. I'm not going to make a triangle or a rectangle and pull that over and all that. I'm just going to fold this into the middle. We're going to flip it over, and I like to use my bench scraper. Push away, and then you're going to pull it to you. So that way you get tension on the top of the bread. And this is where you don't want to use too much flour, because you want it to stick a little bit to the countertop in order to pull that tension. So push it away and pull it towards you. So push it away and then pull it towards us, and you'll see how it's going underneath there and it's making the top tighter. Push it away and then pull it towards you. Pull it towards you. Okay. And then for this loaf, I'm just going to round it off, pull everything to the middle, and then flip it over and pull it towards me. And it works better if you keep your bench scraper up and kind of push that way. Because if you go too low, if you lean it back too much and pull it towards you, it goes under it and it releases this tension on this side. So it just slides. So you want to keep it upright. And sometimes you'll start seeing little bubbles pop out as you get it tight. Okay. Okay, so I use parchment. So I'm going to lay that out. Put that in the middle. And if you don't have a very much of a sticky top and you want to add some flour, just get a bottle, just kind of spritz it. And then you can take some flour, put it on top. And that way it sticks and you can see a better design. Okay, now I'm going to do, I believe I'm going to do an S in the middle, and then I want to do some leaves. So I'm going to do the leaves first, because I know how I'm going to do the S. And then I do my big score last. I'm gonna hold on for that for a second. Need a little trick I forgot. I've done a lot of bread today, but I'm gonna use a Lazy Susan. I just got this one at Walmart, and I'm actually gonna put this in the center. If you have some, if you can get one that doesn't have a lip on it, it's better. Or if you want to put something flat on this, you can put something flat on it to kind of hold it up a little bit. I did forget to put my Dutch ovens in the oven, but they are preheating at 500 right now, and I'm just going to continue to kind of just score a little bit. Put a couple of different leaves on here. This should be what's called like a double ear, and after you make your big expansion score in the middle on your curves right here, you can go up under it at a 45 and kind of cut that curve. These two curves right here, you can go up under them and kind of cut them loose, and that way they should stand up a little bit more. But I've got a little bit more room now. I'm gonna go ahead and do a couple more leaves. Get one little one over here. Okay. So then there's that one. If you want your little crack, the little corners, little four corners right here to stick up, we're going to take some scissors up under the corner and just snip it. So just take our scissors up under the corner about a 1/2 inch and snip, 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 and snip. And that way whenever they expand, they'll stick up a little bit more. Okay, so they're going into the oven. I don't use any water. I don't use any ice. They're going to bake for 35 minutes at 500. Once the 35 minutes is over, I'm going to take the tops off of them, and then we're going to turn it down to 425 and bake them for 10 minutes.